There's people listening to this podcast right now that has made the choice to say nothing, to do nothing, and in return, they feel like they are nothing. They're being nothing. And I think you are we're doing our best to lay out a process to get leaders back engaged. Criticism is inevitable, but you're laying out a process for when that comes. It doesn't have to take you out. It does not have to wreck you. It doesn't have to destroy you mentally, your relationships, your leadership. There is a way for you to be criticized and stay in the game and stay energized and stay in leadership. Hey everybody, welcome back to Between Sundays. We want to start today's episode by saying thank you to all of our amazing listeners. So many of you are tuning in and giving us great feedback, and we genuinely do appreciate that. As a matter of fact, Pastor, we recently discovered that Between Sundays has officially reached almost every continent in the world.
Come on.
We haven't quite made it to Antarctica yet. We're not giving up hope, right?
No, how do we get it down there? That'd be a great podcast.
Well, I have to admit, today I learned that people actually do live in Antarctica. I thought they didn't. So I thought we were just going to have to figure out how to reach penguins and polar bears.
But no, there's people.
So scientists, right? There's people doing research there. Yeah. So hey, if you happen to know someone who is in Antarctica right now, if you could maybe just shoot them one episode, that way we can say officially we are on every continent.
That would be so exciting.
You know, we do this, we record this, we set the time aside to do this because we want Between Sundays to be a resource, first for our church, for the people here at Goodlettsville Pentecostal Church, but really for anyone else who may come across it. And we want it to be beneficial and add value to your life. So if we're hitting that mark in some way, we would love for you to share the podcast through your network with your friends, your coworkers, maybe family members. And then it would be awesome if you'd leave us a rating on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcasts. And this just helps us connect with more people and hopefully multiply our reach and impact as many lives as possible. So again, we just say thank you for listening and supporting Between Sundays. All right, let's talk about what today's episode is about, because today's another good one. We're partial, but we believe today we don't do bad episodes.
No, we're kind of allergic to those.
Yeah, so this is another great episode. And let's talk about what that's about, because this one's a tough one. This is not an easy topic that we're talking about today. And Pastor, we've proven that we're not afraid to talk about tough topics. Today's another example of that, I believe.
Yeah, because we wanted to be helpful. I mean, we wanted to be not just informational or true. We wanted to be helpful. And so sometimes you got to just get where the rubber meets the road. And I think our subject matter today, if you're breathing, if you care about living, if you've done anything that's worth, talking about, you're going to have to face this reality.
Right. And so that reality is criticism. Criticism is the topic that we're going to be addressing today. And, even when I was thinking about this, even when you say the word criticism, like right now, people just heard that, and they probably had an immediate negative thought about that. There's so much negative connotation with criticism. It just feels, even the word feels intimidating. And this topic, I think, is great and relevant because it hits so many people. And if we don't get this right, at some point, it's going to affect our lives in a negative way. So, Pastor, where does this concept of criticism, where does this come from? Why is it important that we're even talking about this today?
Yeah, I think we're going to all deal with it. You're just going to face it at some point, and it can really cripple people. It has hurt people. It has devastated. It has severed people. It has put people out of ministry. It has, divided relationships. I mean, criticism, sooner or later, like it or not, ready or not, it's going to happen, right? It's going to be the real deal. And honestly, it's sometimes what you do and not do. It's sometimes what you say and you don't say, right? But if you care, if you lead, if you've done anything worthy of anything, you're going to face criticism. And it's part of just showing up. It's part of the package. There's no way around it. There's no shortcut. And there's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's going to come. And the reality is, it's in business, it's in church, it's in relationship, it's everywhere. And so I think the best thing you can do is learn what to do when it strikes. Like what should I do? Because you have a reaction, you have a tendency to armor up, to defend, to really to fight back. There is really a natural response to criticism that's probably not the healthiest. And honestly, you don't get better if you continue to bat down criticism. And so I think one smarter man than I, Aristotle, and I wouldn't say wiser, he's just smarter. Smarter, he may be wiser, but Aristotle said, to avoid criticism, do nothing, say nothing, be nothing.
Wow.
And pastoring, really, you live in a glass bowl, so to speak. And, everything people have an opinion about, from, the clothes you wear, from the car you drive, from where you live, what you do. I mean, everybody has an opinion. I can tell you there were times where people would say things to me that, about whether the car I was driving, at that time it was like a 1998 Jetta, right? And they just appreciated me driving this, low, whatever, older car. And again, I just took that. I remember someone telling me, you're building this church and you're a cult leader, like you're David Koresh, and that's their literal words, Wow. And I'm thinking, wow. Yeah. I'm just trying to do the right thing, and I'm not trying to do anything more than God's asking me to do. But criticism comes, and so what do you do with that? Like, how do you handle that? Because it's coming,
right? And I think that's the reality that everyone faces. This is going to be a part of our life, ready or not, prepared for it or not, it's some way this is going to be a part of your life. And if that's the case, then I think it's what we're trying to do today, which is talk to people about how to handle it, because it's coming. Criticism in some way, you said it, the way you look, things that are even out of your control, right? That you have no way of changing it or improving it. It may end up in criticism in some way. So let's help people deal with this. Let's help people handle it in a healthy way, respond to it in a healthy way. So what does that look like? How do we respond to criticism?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you have to listen to it, okay? You got to listen to it. It's going to be hard. You may not like it. It's going to get you irritated. It's going to make you mad, get out of your skin, so to speak. But the only way that we begin to turn what is negative into something that can be helpful is that we have to listen to it. I think Proverbs 15:32 in the New Living Translation says, if you reject criticism, you only harm yourself. But if you listen to correction, you grow in understanding. There is something that is beneficial about criticism, okay? There is something you can gain from listening to criticism. And so the truth of the matter is, are you going to like it? No, you're not. Is it going to be painful? It probably will be painful. But again, the idea is I've got to be mature enough. I've got to be emotionally healthy enough. And man, those words on their own are just big words, right? But I have to look further down the road and say, okay, I got to be able to take on criticism, because a person who will not listen to criticism, a person who will not receive criticism, cannot be helped. Yeah. Like, how do you help somebody that does not receive some input, some correction, some criticism? And so I realize there are different ways to do that. But the first step, again, is you're going to have to listen. Let me dig into this a little bit more, because Norman Vincent Peale said this: the trouble with most of us is we'd rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. Like we would much rather be touted and celebrated, right? And give accolades. We would much rather get that form of praise, and yet we don't learn from praise. We learn from the things that help us become better people. Read recently something like this, that, it's about skin thickness, right? Skin thickness. It can't be so thin that you can accept criticism, but it can't be so thick that you stop listening altogether. Yeah. And most people are in one of those two camps.
So listening to it, and I think, I think there's a reason why you're starting with that, right? Because if you can't hear it, there's the rest of this isn't going to even matter, right?
Right.
And so why do you think, even right off the top here in listening, why do you think it's so hard sometimes for us to even hear criticism? Is it related to our own struggles, our own insecurities? What's the battle there? Why do people struggle so much? And in today's world, especially, hearing criticism that's tough. So why is it so tough?
Yeah, I think you've mentioned some of that, but I do think some of it is the idea of that, my self-worth. I'm dealing with that my own value. Like, again, here's another hit. I don't need somebody else to tell me I'm not good enough. I don't need another person to tell me I'm wrong, right? So I have had enough of that through my life, so I'm not listening anymore. Some of this is we think people don't know my struggle. They don't know what it took to do. They don't know the other side of the coin. They don't know the full picture. They don't know everything. And so, if you knew what I did or had to do to put this on or do this thing or be here, if you knew what I had to go through, then you wouldn't criticize. And so some of that is true. Like, we don't always know everything when we're receiving it or we've given it. We don't always know the full picture of that. Yeah. And so that's why sometimes people think, you know what, you don't know. And so just stay in your lane. Again, I'm not receiving that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And again, tough, not easy. And I think you're going to see as we continue to walk through these, no one's pretending like these are easy. You just gave scenarios of people who have battled past hurts, pains that make it even probably more difficult to hear criticism. But you're laying out a strategy for us to be able to receive it better. So the first step would be just be willing to pause, calm the emotions, calm the mind, and try to listen to what they're saying. All right, what's another thing?
This next step is really the difference between whether any of this works or not. Again, is that number 2 is you don't overreact. Yeah. Because the tendency, I'm telling you, is to fight back, to defend, to armor up. Yeah. To let them know how wrong they are, and again deflect. All of that. That's natural. That's human. Again, that's part of the reality of us living in this moment. And so, how many times have you heard people, just lashed out, spoke too soon, sent that text, sent that email, right? I mean, they just wrote their heart, their feelings, and just sent, and man, again, a firestorm, right? Again, I didn't mean that. I should, in a better place, in a clearer mind, I would have used better words, all of that. You can live in a mountain of regret because, your first response is to overreact. And so this is where it takes really some control, where you step back. You're hurt. You step back and you kind of walk away again, and then you bite your tongue, seriously. Yeah. And sometimes you have to bite it again. Like, I cannot respond. Let me cool off a little bit. Yeah. Let me kind of sanitize this a little bit. Let me kind of marinate this a little bit. Let me kind of get some perspective here a little bit. All of that is true. Let me count to 10, right? Let me hold my breath. Go for a walk. Go for a walk, right? Do whatever you can, because if you overreact, you begin just a string of different events that I promise you, most of the time, you're going to regret a lot of that. And how many people have lived in that moment where they have to say, man, I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I overreacted. I shouldn't have said that. Psalms 15:1, just some great wisdom here. It says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, and grievous words stir up anger. Yeah. You have like one friend said, you have 2 buckets, right? And man, you get criticized. You can put water on that, or you can put gas, and it becomes a firestorm. And so, I think the next big, huge key is don't overreact.
Yeah, it's so good. And these first 2, critical to every bit of this, and they all are. But it's amazing how both of these have zero verbal response from the person receiving criticism. Like, both of these are decisions that are made in the mind, the battle that's already happening when you hear criticism, right? And we've all been in that place where you're criticized and you are like, your mind begins to go crazy, whether you're going in, and you mentioned it, whether you're going into defense mode, whether you're going into retaliation mode, whether you're starting to compare yourself, or, is this true what they're saying? Does this demean me? Is this dinging my self-worth? Is this another thing to pile on? All of that's happening before we ever actually even say a word. What you're describing, the first step is just listen, just hear it, just be ready to hear it. And that second step is an intentional decision. It may be to say nothing right away, but don't overreact.
Let me sleep on this a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So listen, don't overreact. What's next?
The next step is where you start building, you start learning. Again, this is where you really have begun to process what to do with the criticism. But the third thing is you talk about it. Okay, so say again, I receive some criticism. It's a great time to ask some clarifying questions, like what do you mean by that? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Instead of saying no, well, you don't understand. Well, let me give you some more insight. It's really a time to step back and just begin to mind, where does that come from? Like, can you kind of just clarify? The other way is, hey, give me some examples. Like, can you explain a little bit, if this is a problem or an issue, can you give me some examples that I can really wrap my mind around and understand? And a mature step, and this is where, you come with the criticism to a few trusted friends that love you, that know you, right? And just say, hey, this is some criticism. I need you to be honest with me. Is there any truth to this? Now that's probably a step most people don't do. They don't learn from it. They don't kind of let it kind of have a conversation, because one of the things that we're not aware of is self-awareness. That's an issue of all of us. The self-awareness part of it, that, there could be some things in this that is true, things that I need to know or be made aware of. And so ask some trusted friends, hey, listen, here's the criticism. I just need you to be honest with me, okay?
All right, look, so the whole concept of talking about it, I genuinely think this is a major hang-up, right?
Like, doesn't get done.
This right here, and I've said this, it's mission critical. We're discovering something, they're all mission critical. But this is, I feel like people can listen to it. People can maybe not even overreact, but they may let it simmer. They may let it fester. They may let it take root, and then it turns into something unhealthy. And they've never even been willing to dive a little bit deeper into it. And we did an episode about crucial conversations, right. And we already, if you're struggling with how to have crucial conversations, go back and listen to that. But this feeds right into it, because we're so afraid to dive in and talk about these tough issues, tough feedback, criticism, or whatever. And so many times we will either put a smile on and act like we're receiving it, and then go, and it really becomes something toxic in our own spirit.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I've learned is that people will tend to be more honest with you. Like, say I'm bringing some criticism, I'm just trying to bounce it off you. People will tend to be more honest if they know how you'll react, okay? Wow. So if you're an emotionally safe person, a mature person, that, again, just tell me the truth. I'm not going to shoot the messenger. I'm really trying to learn from this. Yeah. People are more willing to be honest with you if they know how you're going to respond to that. If you instantly, well, here, you're joining them. Like, I thought you were my friend, right? I thought you were on my side, and now you're saying the same thing they're saying. Like, there's no learning there.
Yeah, and so is that where people find themselves just living in an echo chamber, where they're not really ever getting any constructive feedback, and we haven't even talked about at this point whether this is true criticism, there's any factual evidence, or if it's constructive. And honestly, and I think you would say what we're talking about, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. This is the process of how to respond to the criticism in a healthy way. But I think you're right. If you put yourself in a position to receive criticism in a positive way, respond in a positive way, you open yourself up to, number one, you're going to be healthier. Yep. Number two, trusted people that you allow into your life are going to be able to give you constructive things that make you better. So the first one, listen to it. The second one was what?
Don't overreact.
Yeah. The third one is, now we're going to talk about it. What's the fourth one?
The fourth one is where you start building the foundation. Is you're starting to learn from it. All right, so you're learning from it. Most of the time, when you get criticized, is all of that true? Like, all the criticism are true? Is everything they're saying correct? Really, honestly, probably not.
Right.
Okay, probably not 100% all true.
What do you say? There's a kernel of truth most of the time?
There's a kernel of truth. Again, and that's a principle that we learned in a book called Axioms. Like, in every criticism, there is a kernel of truth. And wise people go find that kernel. They mine the kernel, right? They understand, maybe all of this is not true. Yeah, some of it's overblown, some of it's unrealistic, some of it is not accurate, but that doesn't mean something in the criticism isn't true. Okay, that there's something there that you can learn from and grow from, and so really, I think we need to have some perspective here and say, okay, I know I get criticized. Somebody doesn't like a decision. They don't like what I'm doing. They may not like the way I whatever, and probably all of that is not true. There's just a kernel there that I can learn from. If I'm wise, I'm going to go discover what that is. It reminds me of the story of this boy that he's in the barn and he's just digging through manure, right? He's just digging through all this stuff, right?
It's disgusting.
And somebody says, man, what are you doing, right? Like, why are you digging? He says, man, there's got to be a horse somewhere in this, right? With all this manure, there's got to be something in here that's right. The truth is, it's a lot of manure sometimes. But there's something in there that's true.
Yeah, and it may stink, right? It may stink to dig through it, but there could be
but dig.
But keep digging. Oh my goodness. I want to ask you, you obviously a senior leader, we're coming up on 20 years of your pastoral anniversary here. I know in 20 years of this, there's probably been lessons that you've learned through criticism, things that probably stung, that you didn't want to hear. Right. And so I bet, and you can speak for yourself, but I bet the reason you can talk about this is because you've lived this. You've had to dig through some manure to find the horse. And sometimes it probably felt like, the horse was pretty underwhelming when we got to it, but we found it.
Shetland.
Right? Yeah. So, you've lived this, right?
Yeah. An interesting truth to this. I was preaching one message, and God bless this church for enduring a lot of bad preaching. Okay, and so I was preaching, and I'm preaching Genesis, that God spoke everything to existence. He said, "Let there be," and there was and I said, the only thing that God built and made, from His hands is a man. He formed him from the ground, the dust of the ground, right? And this sweet lady, Sister Odell McDonald. Okay, God bless her. She's no longer with us. She comes marching up right after. It was a blow and go in service. It was like one of those, man, this
throw
is
down,
hanging, biting chunks from the ceiling, right? It was so good. In my opinion, right? Everybody was bored out of their mind, but man, I'm just giving it all I got. And she comes marching in. She hands me a piece of paper, and in that piece of paper, she said, "Pastor, I appreciate your message, but that's not true." And she showed me in the Bible where God also formed the animals out of the dust of the ground. And I'm just telling you, in my mind, it never registered like that.
Wow.
And it forever wow. And here's a lady that again, I'm going to brave and step up and not pat him on the back. I'm saying, you need to do better, right? Yeah. But it really, really made me think, I got to make sure what I'm preaching, what I'm saying is true, right? Yeah. Not just caught up in the moment. That one stung, not as deep, but there are some that are, again, I've made some decisions that I'm sure that have made people very disappointed. I don't want to be too specific. Trying to save the innocent, protect the innocent. And they let me know that in a very clear way, not trying to be disrespectful, but they were not pleased with whatever decision I made. And I have to receive that. I got to be broad enough shoulders to say, thank you for sharing your heart, right? This is why. I know you may not agree with my decision. I just want to explain why I made that decision. And again, I respect you not agreeing with that, but at least you have some insight of why. But I realized a long time ago, if you shut down criticism, if you have to really just be polished all the time, you can't grow.
Do you think, and again, this is on topic, maybe not in the notes, but do you think that this is where a lot of leaders check out? This is why maybe a lot of leaders check out, because they can't fathom dealing with the criticism. They can't handle emotionally. And so, you've talked about insecurity, leadership insecurity it can be a very dangerous thing, because I think what we're talking about is you can't receive this stuff. And I think just by default, whenever you are in a position of leadership, you are immediately in a position to be criticized. There's going to be your biggest fans, and there's going to be, what the kids say, the haters. There's going to be people who have all kinds of opinions about you. You've just said it. We went through a season where, 2020, where you make a decision half of the church is your biggest fan. Half the church, not our church. Not half.
No, this church.
Okay. So, the other half of the church thinks you're a heretic, and how dare you listen to the government, and that's like, how do you lead through that? Like, and I know that's a different episode, I'm sure, but every leader is going to have a time where they're going to be criticized. Is it just part of leading?
It is, but the other question is, like, when do you ever learn how to handle criticism? Like, where do you ever get that class? I mean, there's books, and I know there's articles.
College.
Right. Like, where do you learn? Like, who instructs us how to really benefit and men, how to navigate? I've talked about this in settings, in other church leadership settings, and I'm telling you, when I'm done, there's just tears. Like there are people that are they're raw. They understand it. You can feel there's something breaking in the room because you're touching something that's so sensitive. Like, where do you learn? We don't learn this in our families. There's really not a collegiate way of doing it. There's probably a class or two, but by far, majority of people have never had any teaching, training. Again, it's a trial and error, right? If you have a better personality, you have better exposure of things, you may get better at it. But who really holds our hands and walks us through the step-by-step approach about how to handle criticism? It's just not something that is talked about or discussed often.
Yeah, that's so good. So we're gonna learn from it. We're gonna examine it. We're gonna dig through all the minutia, the manure, and we're gonna find a kernel of truth in the criticism. We're gonna see if there's something that we can learn from that could add value. What's the next one? What's number 5?
So once you learn from it, I think the next thing is to pray about it. Literally, like, I bring this criticism to the Lord and say, God, is there some truth in this? Is there something that you want me to learn? Is there something about this that I need to receive? Is there something about this that God is going to benefit me down the road? I'm asking you, Lord, to show me. I'm asking you to help me process this. I want you to know. I don't want to be such a guarded, protected leader that I could not receive some correction. And again, there's biblical example of this that just really, again, the one that comes to my mind is in Samuel, where David is fleeing, as he's fleeing Absalom. He's running. I mean, it's a bad time. And there's this village guy that's criticizing David, like he is totally criticizing. David's men says, we'll kill him right now. And David said, no, let him. I need to receive this. And I recognize that, again, there has to come a point where we just bring this before God and say, God, this hurts. It's painful. People don't know what I'm trying to do. They don't, whether, again, maybe I'm battling some own self-worth issues, some self-value issues, whether this is some esteem issues or whatever past hurts. But God, I'm asking you to give me some wisdom here. I'm asking you to give me insight. And so it's a true prayer. Like, I just bring it before God and just ask God to help me to get insight. Give me some perspective. Give me something that I can walk away and benefit from it.
Yeah, I think we know, hopefully we all know and believe that anything that we're facing, we could take to God in prayer, right? We can, and there's no one that spends time in prayer that it does not benefit their life in some way. And so we don't want to undervalue what this step is, because I genuinely believe this is where healing can happen. Right. This is where the opportunity for restoration of your mind, all the things that we've talked about that a lot of people who really struggle with criticism deal with. You are not going to fix that. I am not going to fix all of those things. It's going to take genuine, authentic time with Jesus, time in a prayer room, time where we put ourselves on an altar and say, God, let the parts of me that need to be changed and corrected, like put me back together, right? And so that's going to only happen through intentional times of prayer. And so I love that. What's the next step?
The next step is really saying, God, thank you for it. Thank God for it. I know that sounds crazy, right?
That sounds weird.
That sounds so, counterintuitive. But remember, your critics could not come to you unless God allows them to come to you, right? Wow. Nothing is passed through your life that God has not overseen or given permission or allowing in your life. And so, the criticism could be really, really off. It could be really, really wrong, but it's in that God brings a purpose. And maybe it's to check you. Maybe it's to remind you, you're not as perfect as you think you are. there's a humility about this. There's a grace about this. There's a confidence not in just our own abilities or talents or skills, but in what God's called us to do, his grace that supplies and his love and his mercy that endures forever. And so it's a time to say, God, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take the venom from this. I'm going to take the pain from this and say, thank you. Thank you for those that are helping me. Because sometimes these critics can become your best, your best advocate. They are actually now, because they are allowed to be honest with you and you've received that in a mature way, in a righteous way, now they become something that is a champion for you. Again, there's some benefits. There's some character building that happens in criticism. Again, the stories are really, really true. You didn't get the position that you wanted. You didn't get the promotion. Somebody else got asked to do something you wanted, and it hurts. It's painful. Somebody doesn't appreciate all that you've done. They don't know all that you've done, and it's really, really painful. And you could throw up your hands and give up. You can say, I'll never try again. I'll never be involved. I'll never engage. I'll never allow. And this is natural. I've been hurt too bad. But when you can begin to say, no, God, thank you for this. I'm going to celebrate, God, because you can turn what is wrong, what is painful into something for my good. And that's a truth about criticism, that it can actually turn into something that's beneficial and helpful. And in the long run, makes you a better individual and better leader.
Yeah, and that's, again, none of these are easy. This one certainly, like we said, that feels a little strange, right? And this takes extreme trust, right? Like it doesn't make sense in the natural whenever you are hearing something, even if it's a kernel of truth. When you're hearing criticism about yourself, like even right now as we're thinking about this, it just it does not register in our human thinking to thank God for something that may not even have a lot of truth to it. But I think that's where the trust in God and the trust in the process and trusting that really he can take all of the things that are out of my control, everything that the enemy meant for evil. That person, we've used this before, you said, I know the devil was going to fight me. I just didn't know he was going to use that person, right? He can take that person and he can work all of that together for the good, for something good and positive. But that takes some big trust, right? That takes some big faith. That takes some spiritual maturity to be able to get to this point to say, I hear that. I don't even know if I fully understand it or agree with it, but I'm going to say, thank you, Jesus, for allowing something into my life that hopefully I'm going to grow from in some way. So we're going to thank God for it, even when it doesn't make sense. Naturally, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, these are mature steps. That's why, again, they are helpful, because I'm trying to give you handrails when criticism comes. It could be on the job, it could be in your own home, it could be in ministry, it could be at a lot of different places, but giving you handrails of saying, how do I navigate this? So it doesn't wreck me. Yeah. It doesn't paralyze me. It doesn't put me in a prison. It doesn't scar me forever. And these are real truths. These are real realities. And people have been so damaged by criticism because they don't know how to process it. So I think this last point is just probably the hardest but the most important step in the process. And that is, you have to forget about it. Okay. I can't let this follow me. I can't drag it with me. I really, again, I cannot let it diminish who and what God wants to do in my life. I would have stopped a long way down the road if someone would have criticized my preaching, which they did, criticized my leadership, which they did, criticized who I was, criticized where I came from, criticized what my dreams. I mean, you can just start stacking them up. Like everything that I thought was good, there was someone that took a shot at it. But you can say, Lord, I'm gonna take that criticism, and here's the beauty about it: you keep moving forward, and if it's right and you've learned from it, you've become better. If it's wrong and off base and mean spirited, someone's just trying to hurt you and harm you. They don't like you. They're against you. Again, you've learned that patience and long suffering is important, right? You either way, you don't lose. You can't lose either way if you process this right. Either you've actually gained and you've grown and you've learned, or you've learned a character building trait. What I sometimes call them, grace builders, people that are really, they don't have the wisdom. They're going to say it in a way that's going to be truth on the end of a spear, and they want to prick your heart. They don't stab you in the back, they stab you in the front, right? And that's just their MO. That's the way their life is. But either way, I've learned to be patient. I've learned to learn from it and grow from it. But whatever I have learned from this is I'm not letting that follow me. I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep the right things in my heart, my spirit. I'm not going to get jaded. I'm not going to get closed off. I'm not going to get callous. I'm going to keep believing, keep reaching, keep leading, keep trusting. And honestly, that's the hardest thing, forgetting about it. Even as I'm sitting here, trying to be as honest and as authentic as I can in this moment for all those that are watching, I know criticism is real, but I can be honest with you. There's probably a lot I forgot. There's a lot of things that I forgot. And when I look at those individuals today, I am not reminded of their criticism. This is where God has helped me truly to forget and say, I'm moving forward. I forgive you. Again, hopefully you've understand and we've become better. A lot of them are now biggest supporters, biggest people that help me and believe in what God's doing here at our church. And so my prayer is that someone that's listening to this, you're in a moment, you've been criticized. Someone said something mean. Somebody said something hurtful. Somebody said something that wasn't nice. And and it's bothering you. It's in your spirit. You can't even come to church anymore, right? They may miss church. They don't want to be involved in ministry anymore. Somebody did something that was really, really painful. It's not the will of God for you to bow out, and that's not the blow that takes you out of the game. This could be a moment where you learn something that could save your soul, save your future, save your ministry, save your career. If you'll learn how to take criticism from a boss, a coworker, a fellow saint, again, and just begin to process that correctly.
That is so powerful, so good. Man, and I think there's a reason why that's number 7, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why that's the last one. Because I'm thinking that only works if you have walked through the other 6. Like, I believe what you're saying, that you have to release it at some point. You cannot hold it. It reminds me of, and it's probably, I think, a football players, quarterbacks talk about when you throw an interception, you got to forget that play. You got to have a short-term memory, and you got to learn from it. You watch a quarterback. We're getting ready to go into football season. You watch a quarterback throw an interception, and the great ones, they walk straight. They probably have some frustrations. They probably may throw their helmet down a little bit, but the first thing they're going to do is go sit on the bench, and they got a tablet, and they're looking at the defense. They're looking at, where did I mess up? What adjustments do I need to make? And they got to put that play out of their mind and move on to the next play. And I think, the challenge with a lot of leaders, and some that you just called them out just a moment ago, not in a negative way, but you just said some of these leaders are out of the game right now. And that quote that you kind of opened up with from Aristotle, it says, to avoid criticism, you say nothing, you do nothing, and you be nothing. And there's people listening to this podcast right now that has made the choice to say nothing, to do nothing, and in return, they feel like they are nothing. They're being nothing. And I think we're doing our best to lay out a process to get leaders back engaged. Criticism is inevitable. Mm-hmm. Anything that you're going to do, there's going to be criticism, but you're laying out a process for when that comes. It doesn't have to take you out. It does not have to wreck you. It doesn't have to destroy you mentally, your relationships, your leadership. There is a way for you to be criticized and stay in the game and stay energized and stay in leadership. And that is super encouraging. And I hope those of you who are listening to this, I hope you're taking notes, and those 7 things, those 7 steps are the key, I believe, to being able to have a positive response when criticism comes our way.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Pastor.
Yeah, and again, I hope we're helping somebody. The challenge, and every time we close a podcast, is we want to issue a challenge to those that are listening. And the challenge I feel to issue today is the next time you're criticized, the next time you feel that, you experience that you would reflect back on these 7 and just walk it, see what happens. Like, just test it. Test it, right? Don't let your natural reaction or your flesh take over. Don't let your emotions ride the day. Just reflect back and say, okay, am I processing this right? Am I handling this in the best way possible? Because actually, you're going to experience, and my prayer is that you're ready for it.
So good. So good. We want to wrap this up with, as we always do, we have amazing volunteers at GPC, and we like to share a verse from one of our volunteers. And today, this volunteer, it's very timely to celebrate this volunteer, and that's Jordan Erickson.
Yay, Jordan! Give it up for Jordan Erickson. Yes,
Jordan. I'll just speak to this real quick, and I know you will too. Jordan. Yep. Recently, most people wouldn't even know this when they hear this. This is going to be news to a lot of people that Jordan put the creative elements, a lot of what you saw. If you were a GPC or this past Sunday for our Campaign of Joy halftime Sunday, the cool stuff that you saw, Jordan Erickson put that on her back, and she came up with the ideas and all of the time and energy that she invested into that. And so, major shout out to you, Jordan. You're an awesome leader, and she's newer to our church. Yeah. Married Keaton, and it's cool just to see her influence grow. And we appreciate you, Jordan.
Yeah, she volunteers in a lot of different areas. And again, just a fantastic leader, great spirit, great attitude. Sister Snazzy, man, that's just the buzzword. But
that's inside stuff right
for
there.
Sure. But Sister Snazzy, just a incredible leader that just has put this church on her back in this event and just has really, really helped us with excellence, and not just getting it done, but getting it done the right way. And so want to say a shout out to you. But honestly, she's been in a lot of different things, and every time she's involved, whatever team she's on, man, it's a winning team. And that's just a great team player. So thank you, Jordan, for all of your excellent work and volunteer. We're so thankful for you, and we just speak God's blessings upon you. Your favorite verse, 1 Corinthians 15:58, and I think, Billy, this is so appropriate too, with the content of criticism. But get this verse, and this is her favorite verse, 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Powerful.
That's amazing. It's almost like God is in this somehow.
Some way.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Between Sundays. We'll talk to you next time.